Welcome, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into something pretty unexpected. We're exploring this really surprising cultural intersection from the 1980s.
Yeah.
You had a connection between straight edge, hardcore punk, and believe it or not, vintage Tamiya RC model vehicles.
It sounds pretty out there at first, doesn't it?
It really does. But our mission today is to unpack how these two, well, seemingly totally different worlds actually found common ground. We're talking shared chronology from the 80s, a really strong DIY do-it-yourself ethos, even some striking aesthetic parallels.
And maybe some common psychological drivers, too, related to identity and finding a constructive focus.
Exactly. It's a truly fascinating convergence when you start digging.
You know, picturing the raw energy of a punk show versus someone meticulously putting together a tiny gearbox. They seem like opposites.
Right. Worlds apart.
But as we look at the sources, this connection, it's definitely not just a coincidence. It seems like a deeply rooted cultural thing from that specific time.
That's the real intrigue here, I think. So get ready to maybe figure out why someone who once marked their hand with that X at a show might now get, like, profound satisfaction from assembling a Tamiya Frog gearbox.
Yeah, the source material really paints this vivid picture. Both scenes were really defining themselves in the same kind of transformative decade.
Okay, so let's set the scene. What was straight edge really all about back in the 80s, and how does Tamiya fit into that specific timeline?
Well, straight edge essentially grew out of the hardcore punk scene, particularly in DC. It was kind of a counterculture within the counterculture,
A reaction against what?
a reaction against the sort of hedonism, the self-destruction sometimes associated with punk, or at least the perception of it. Bands like Minor Threat, especially with their song Straight Edge in '81, literally gave it a name.
Right, the name itself.
Yeah, a commitment to basically abstain from alcohol, tobacco, recreational drugs.
So it wasn't just negative, like saying no to things. It was more like rebellion through self-control.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. This idea of clarity, conscious living, it often led people to embrace other things too, maybe vegetarianism, veganism, focusing on a more positive, proactive way of looking at the world.
And was this constructive drive, this DIY spirit, was that fundamental right from the start for straight edge?
Oh, absolutely. For straight edge, DIY was like the operational backbone. Had to be.
How so?
Well, think about creating independent record labels, Discord Records being the prime example, organizing their own all-ages shows in, VFW halls or community centers, not relying on commercial promoters,
Yeah.
and getting ideas out there through homemade zines, these self-published little magazines and small 7-inch vinyl records. It was a powerful rejection of commercialism, really prioritizing self-sufficiency and authentic community.
Okay, and this is where the Tamiya RC connection starts to get really interesting. Because while straight edge is building its scene in basements and community halls, Tamiya is kind of simultaneously dominating hobby shop shelves, right?
Yeah.
The 80s was their golden era. You had these iconic off-road buggies like the Frog, the Hornet.
Absolutely huge at the time.
But the appeal wasn't just the finished car running around, was it?
No, not at all. Precisely. The core of the Tamiya experience back then was the build.
The process itself.
Exactly. These weren't snap-together toys. They were, intricate models, hundreds of parts sometimes. You had multi-gear transmissions, oil-filled shock absorbers.
Yeah, I remember those oil shocks.
Right. It required tools, patience, and honestly, a surprising amount of engineering skill, or at least mechanical aptitude. It was almost like a practical education in mechanics, kind of hidden inside a weekend hobby.
It really takes me back. Countless weekends spent hunched over a workbench, probably got a few scraped knuckles.
Oh, yeah.
But that incredible satisfaction when you tighten that final screw and it all works.
Yeah.
Was that kind of hands-on, tactile satisfaction? Was that a hidden common thread? Does that make the DIY aspect truly equivalent between these two seemingly different worlds?
I think it's a really profound connection, yeah. Assembling a Tamiya kit is like a tangible expression of the exact same self-sufficiency that drove a hardcore kid to press their own 7-inch record or cut and paste a zine.
Okay.
And think about it. For someone committed to the straight-edge lifestyle, this kind of hobby provides an almost ideal recreational outlet. It demands focus, a clear mind, completely separate from, say, substance-centric environments like bars or typical rock shows.
And it seems like it goes beyond just the process, the building, the aesthetics. they're surprisingly similar when you look
They
closely.
really are.
Think about the visual language of 80s hardcore album art.
Oh.
Often very stark, utilitarian, bold, blocky letters, high contrast, black and white, maybe a single defiant figure.
Yep, exactly. Now look at Tamiya's box art from that era, the Hornet, the wild one.
Right.
Tamiya sort of moved from purely realistic models to designing these bespoke, almost aggressive character buggies, and the box art showed them dynamically, kicking up dust, soaring through the air.
Yeah, very energetic.
And they used bold, often italicized fonts, bright primary colors against clean white backgrounds. Both cultures, hardcore and Tamiya packaging, used these high contrast palettes and focused on a single kind of heroic subject, whether it's a band member or a vehicle to convey energy and a powerful attitude.
So it's not just a fluke that a Minor Threat record sleeve and a Tamiya frog box might somehow appeal to the same visual sensibility.
I don't think it's a fluke at all. It's quite striking when you put them side by side.
Which kind of leads us towards the psychological drivers, maybe. For many people now, say in their 40s or 50s, the original straight edge generation, collecting vintage Tamiya kits today, it seems like a powerful exercise in nostalgia.
Exactly. It's definitely about reconnecting with the cherished part of their youth, for sure. But it's also more, I think, it's about identity curation.
What do you mean by that?
Well, whether it's a meticulously organized collection of rare 7-inch records or shelves of vintage Tamiya buggies, it physically manifests an individual's values, their history, their passions. You're showing who you are through what you value and preserve.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And there's also that shared pursuit of mastery, isn't there? Whether it's like encyclopedic knowledge of a band's discography or the technical skill needed to perfectly rebuild a complex Tamiya gearbox. That shared pursuit also fosters really strong communities, both online and offline.
That makes sense. And the fact that Tamiya has been re-releasing many of their classic 80s kits recently, that must have really amplified this connection, made it more visible today.
Oh, hugely. It's been a massive catalyst. It provides this tangible bridge right back to the past that aligns perfectly with those constructive values we talked about, the focus, the skill, the clean fun, if you will, associated with the straight edge lifestyle. It brings these worlds even closer, makes it easier to engage with now.
Yeah, it removes a barrier to entry, maybe.
Right. So ultimately, this affinity between straight edge hardcore and vintage Tamiya RC, it really isn't some weird coincidence. It seems to be a genuinely rooted cultural phenomenon.
Built on
that mutual DIY devotion, those surprisingly similar aesthetics we discussed, and how both function as avenues for identity, for community, and for positive, sober recreation.
So, wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Maybe consider the symbolic space of a workbench.
Mm-hmm.
Picture someone meticulously cleaning the ball bearings for, say, a Tamiya frog kit, while maybe a Minor Threat record is playing in the background.
Yeah.
In that space, the rebellious youth and the skilled adult hobbyist, they aren't really separate identities, are they? They're more like a unified expression of a life built on, perhaps, clarity, control, and that enduring satisfaction you get from creating something tangible with your own two hands.
It's a powerful image.
It really is. And maybe it's a reminder for all of us that our passions, no matter how different they might seem on the surface, often serve the same core needs and values deep down. Something to think about.